Dice are rolling, darkness falls. Inside the GM Studios halls. Tabletop games where nightmares creep. In a realm where sanity is lost and weak. Welcome to the abyss where dreams shatter. Inside the GM studio, nothing else matters. Blood and chaos, the dark arts unfold. In the realm of role-playing, where legends are told.
And welcome back to the side question episode of Inside the GM Studio, where we field questions about role-playing games from the internet. I am your host, David.
I'm Matt.
And with that, we're going to do the clickety-clack. I like the sound of it on this table. Concrete. 5. I get a 5 this week.
All right, 5. Shazam, bring it over to this. All right. This one comes from Kristovna on our Ask Game Masters with the title Mini Campaign Ideas. I just finished a major two-year arc in my main campaign, and I'm looking for some ideas for a 5 to 6 session mini campaign as a break before we start back on the main one. The problem is my brain is so burnt out from the main campaign that I'm having trouble thinking of new concepts for a short dive into something else. It doesn't have to be any particular system, but would like something super fun, silly, with low stakes and not very serious, intense, and not very serious / intense, all right? Any ideas you could throw my way would be really appreciated. This is kind of cool because you're technically doing this right now with the Barbarians of Lemura.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know what a short campaign is. To me, that's just an adventure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you just need to think in terms of kind of smaller scale storytelling. With Sword and Sorcery, it's almost always that. So, if you're trying to have an adventure that has a short arc, then the stakes don't necessarily need to be low, but relative to kind of a world-saving campaign low. So I guess if that's the top, then yeah.
Yeah, if it's like super heroic and, where a lot of high fantasy stuff is kind of like really points to these days when it comes to fantasy role-playing, I could see, it's kind of like the beach episode. The gang goes to the beach.
Yeah.
It's away from the main series storyline, and it's the day that they go to the beach.
Yeah, or a bottle episode or whatever you would want to call it, kind of self-contained. The best approach is probably to think of things, if you're going to be carrying the characters forward into a new campaign, try to think of some things that are more character focused, things that matter to the characters, and craft mini plot lines. I mean, I guess if it's a campaign, you're going to do 6 sessions, you have 4 or 5 players, then just choose one. You could do it either a series of one-shots, but they're all contiguous, like they all take place in the same location, and each episode, so to speak, is going to focus on something that each one of the players wants, or each one of the players is trying to achieve.
I like that idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it seems like it just kind of could be pretty organic, and it can just be anchored in a location with maybe some of the same marquee players that have their fingers in a variety of different stuff. And so it would be lower stakes because you wouldn't be resolving any sort of grand conflicts. You would be kind of pulling at threads that the PCs were interested in. And this would contextualize the subsequent campaign when you're starting a new one where, you know something more about the characters. Maybe there's more opportunity for inter-party dialogue. Or if you didn't want to have them all be episodic, then just choose a kind of low-stakes thing that has a fairly straightforward arc that doesn't need to that doesn't need to really affect anything on either side of it. They're just kind of there to help. And if you've just completed a longer campaign, then something in my mouth. Gross. Then the players probably have some sort of reputation. You could just kind of anchor them in an area where almost like an epilogue to that campaign. What are the ramifications of everything that they just did in the previous campaign? Like that came to a conclusion. Presumably it had some sort of resolution. You can think of any things that are either loose ends that didn't get tied up because the party didn't have time, they weren't super germane to the main plot, or just some sort of, ramifications, things that might be minor, but still kind of important and would increase their reputation. Maybe somebody's farmstead got, overran and they need help setting it up. I always think of these kind of small quest arcs as kind of the things that you would do, like, when you're like at the beginning of a video game that's like a role-playing game, and most of the quests are just kind of like, go find a pie, so that I can bake this pie, and it's like you're just kind of helping people out, and
Go pick these berries for me.
yeah, and it's just kind of quaint and wholesome, and they usually amount to, if you're not going to have them tied to the characters, then they kind of usually just amount to kind of fetch quests, but those work well in an environment where the PCs haven't been there in the previous campaign. Maybe the previous campaign ended, and now you're transitioning to another campaign, and there's kind of this little interlude in the middle where maybe the PCs have traveled from the first destination, but they're not quite to the second destination, but they're in this kind of intermediary destination. Maybe they stop in a small village, or maybe they come across some sort of, camp, or like a wilderness civilization or something. It's just kind of like a waylay point, and they're there because they have more journey to go to get to where the next campaign kicks off. But while they're here, they have a reputation that's expanded, or maybe they're in the area where some things that might matter to them. You can always insert things. I mean, that's the beauty of it. You can just insert things into the world where you need them to be, right? It's some character had a thing in their backstory where they wanted to, I don't know, reconcile with their, uncle or something. And you just say, okay, the uncle's farmstead or whatever is just here, and you can go and do that. And you can fill in all sorts of gaps with the characters' backstories, or even things that they've kind of meant to do, and it'll be a nice palate cleanser, and it'll give the PCs, they'll be engaged because it'll be very centric to kind of what it is they want, and as a result, it won't necessarily have any super high stakes. I really kind of probably depends on if you're playing some sort of system where there's like a leveling schema, then it's kind of hard to have low stakes things that in the upper reaches of levels, like in D&D, for instance. You get past like 8th, 9th level, it's kind of hard to have things that aren't high stakes, because those are where your capabilities lie. Your capabilities lie on the ability to deal with bigger problems, and so, but just because they might be not low stakes, empirically, they can be low stakes relative to the stakes of the previous campaign. Those are my thoughts for if you're going to you're transitioning from one campaign to another with the same PCs. However, since he said it doesn't matter what system it is, it kind of implied that maybe the campaign had run its course. Maybe they topped out on level.
Nope, I just went back and read it. They say in here, I just finished a major 2-year arc in my main campaign, and I'm looking for some ideas for a 5 to 6 session mini campaign as a break before we start back up on the main one.
Right. But is the main one carrying over with the same characters? I'm assuming that means yes.
Yes, that's what I'm guessing.
Okay.
That's what I'm guessing. That's what it's written like, and that's what I was.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of what I took away too. But you could also do things if you're I guess what I was unclear about is whether he wanted this little mini campaign to include the same characters, is what I'm getting
Right.
at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he might just want something that's like a different system, because he intimated that he didn't care what system it is.
Yeah.
So maybe he just wants a break from the two bigger chapters, and in which case, you just have to start small. Maybe even the game that you choose would just naturally be a lower stakes game. If you choose, something like Tea Time Adventures, that's just a low stakes game. And there's other kind of anime themed, like, kind of, what's the one
Hmm.
that's basically Studio Ghibli? Um,
Ryotama.
yeah, you choose something like that, or something where the characters are just kind of, they're just starting out and it's a new system. Then it doesn't need to be any sort of world-saving thing, or even anything that's super high stakes. You could choose something that's a little less combat-centric, and in which case that just naturally makes the stakes lower a lot of the
Mm.
time, is because there's no, combat is life or death. That's like the highest stakes that you can have,
Right.
is life or death stakes. So, choose something where the characters are, um, building a reputation, or they're helping out some sort of community using like skill checks and
Hmm.
role playing and social encounters, and what they stand to gain is just, you know people like them more. They're not vying for glory or anything like that. They're just trying to make a little community better, or figure out why, I don't know, why the lights went off, right?
Yeah.
Like the light's been stolen, right? And it's
Mm.
now, and you gotta get the light back on, or just something like that. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of neat. And so the setting will govern that. If you choose something like Shadowrun or Rifts, or
Yeah.
one of those, it's just like they're typically in worlds where the stakes are just kind of high and they're
Mm.
gritty. So don't choose a system like that. Choose something that's a little more quaint and fun, I guess.
Yeah. It's a good time to like they were stating. Don't care what the system is. It's a great time to try something new.
Hmm.
There's a lot of systems out there that are made for short campaigns now.
Hmm.
Some of them want that feeling of, and they do, because they are a little, they're just, your characters are squishy in it. It's easy to die, or it's easy to quote unquote lose the game, kind of.
Yeah.
I always talk about Blades in the Dark. I think Blades in the Dark is a great game, but it's not good for more than 12 sessions. I think it's a 12 session game max,
Yeah.
because leveling up in it, progression, isn't really there.
Hmm.
And sure, progressing a story for a long time is fun and it's wonderful to make it, but you're also playing a game where you want that progression at the end of the day to give you that little bit of dopamine to keep going. And there's these little games, Morkborg, a lot of OSR games these days. Uh, like I said, Blades in the Dark, and you can even use Forged in the Dark, which is like their universal system that is made for short term, uh, where they can be goofy, funny, low stake as much as you want. That all comes from you as you run the game and the little adventure that it's going to be. Um, I also think that this is also a great time, because I've done this in the past as well. That NPCs that the group has met, or factions that they've joined or run across, you can play new characters in the same world at the same time in these factions that have worked with the party, and
Mm.
maybe do little side quests that they've done. And then later on, the group can hear about it, or maybe they heard it from that faction. The spy from the Harpers have come and said, "I've been off for 3 weeks and I found this. Maybe you can play that. Find out how did he get this information, because at the time, maybe the dungeon master didn't have the information to bring out right away."
Yeah,
Uh,
it's something in the main plot, like Rogue One does that in
yeah,
Star
yep,
Star Wars world.
yeah,
It's like, oh, here's how they got that thing that they had in the first movie or
yeah. Many
whatever. It's like,
Bothans died, and this is how they did it.
yeah, exactly. And so, but yeah, choosing the system, like, because like I said, if he doesn't care about the system, I'm thinking it's probably not going to be in the same world with the same narrative.
Mm,
Because then it seems like he would have started with, I'm playing,
right.
fifth edition D&D,
Yeah.
and I want something in the same world or whatever. So just try switching systems, but that'll be key. Even some things that are geared toward shorter campaigns, so to speak. can still be pretty high stakes. I mean, Call of Cthulhu is that way. It's designed for like four, five, six,
Yep.
seven, maybe 8 sessions, but
Hmm.
like with the fatalistic inevitability that your character goes mad or dies,
Right.
and
Yep.
you're
Yep.
quite literally trying to save the world. And so that wouldn't work. You need something that just seems, for lack of a better word, cute. And if you just, get a role playing game even independent of the system, that's cute, even if it has something like combat in it. Like I'm thinking of the Mouse Guard RPG.
Hmm.
It's cute. It's like, your little mice. And so it's like you can have something like that that is,
Yeah, but you're a mouse with a sword.
yeah, but that's the thing is it's like
Yeah.
remember the mouse on the motorcycle? I
Hmm.
think it's the first
Ralph.
one.
Ralph.
Yeah, yeah, but one of the plot arcs in one of the books, if I recall, is that the boy that he's kind of friends with or whatever is sick. So he's trying to find aspirin, right? Because he's just so little, like
Yeah.
the stakes are little because it's like he can't really affect much in the wide world,
Hmm.
but he just tries to find an aspirin.
Yeah.
And it's like, but because his world is so small, it makes it kind of quaint and low stakes. Like even though it's very
Yeah.
intense within the context of the book to the mouse, when you read it, it just kind of makes you go like, oh, that's okay,
Yeah. It's a
it's
cute little
fine.
mouse going on the hero's journey
Yeah,
to the medicine cabinet.
yeah, yeah. And he's trying to find it, and even has the because one of the other toy cars is an ambulance, and so he transports it in the ambulance, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Meow," he's like driving the little ambulance with the aspirin in the back. And so, there's certain things like that, like Mouse Guard, although yes, they have swords and they're knights and they're all like
Mm.
honor bound. Like if you try to think of what would be the problems in a mouse's world, they're going to be small stakes compared to like the people world, and
Yeah.
so that could work if and it would probably be something different and a change of pace. So
Their dragons are cats.
yeah, exactly. Like what's it? The Secret of Nim, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like literally the cat's named Dragon.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's like they're oh my goodness, and the stakes of that is just that they're moving and they're gonna dig up this little cinder block,
Hmm.
and it's like, but that's a big deal to their world, and so it frames it in a way that for the characters in the narrative, the stakes seem important, but they're still kind of quaint, low stakes compared to just like anything that has interstellar travel is going to have higher stakes than anything that's grounded terrestrially because the stakes automatically mean that they're intergalactic and they're among planets. This is why Dune or Star Wars or anything with intergalactic travel in it, Star Trek,
Hmm.
it's not just the fate of the world, it's the fate of like a galaxy or sometimes the entire universe, and,
Hmm.
and that's stakes all the way up to 11. So
All right. Angry John in the comments down here. I thought of this too. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. If you are so burnout, have you considered asking one of your players to step into the DM shoes for a short arc instead? I've found nothing recharges my energy to run quite so much as getting to play for a few sessions.
yeah.
I will say it recharges my batteries as well
Hmm.
because I am a fucking narcissist GM. I am. I know I have faults in this, and I will sit there and I will uh, let one of my players run for a little bit, and all I can think of is just like, man, I want to get back to my game really
Yeah.
bad. As I'm sitting there and I'm having fun playing, but it's like man, this really it starts to get the creative juices running again, and it's just like I really want to get back to this.
Because it stops feeling like an obligation,
Yeah, yeah,
and it gives you chance to kind of miss uh, gaming. That's um, yeah, I wouldn't have, because my brain works the way that I do, I wouldn't have thought of suggesting that because that's not what the questioner asked. He asked for an idea for a campaign, not like what should I do if I'm burned out. But that might not be a bad tactic to just kind of give yourself a little bit of a break. But sometimes just changing to a new game with different characters can be enough, especially if you don't need to, it's like a finite thing. You don't need to set up like an ongoing soap opera, like a
mm,
campaign that goes from levels whatever 10 to 20. You're just like, oh, it's just going to be 6 sessions, and in which case it's probably wise to choose something that has either a fairly fast progression system or like, something that's ad hoc, kind of like it is in Barbarians of Lemura, where you can spend your advancement just between, sagas. And you want to have each chapter, each session be kind of an opportunity. Or like in Call of Cthulhu, I think you can do that, where the progression is fast, or just doesn't have a progression system, where it's just like the characters are
Mm-hmm.
just kind of static characters, because it's super rules light or something like that. So
Yeah. Uh, Spartan CFOs here says, kind of like what you were talking about before. He says, run a horror game. Horror games are meant to be run short, and they also don't get too crazy when it comes to player agencies. It can be as lighthearted as you want it to be, and it can be as intense as you want it to be. But it is not meant to be longer than 6 to 8 sessions.
yeah, what was that game that I'm blanking on the name of it now. Patrick introduced me to it. I don't think we ever ended up actually playing it.
Paranoia.
Um, that might be it. Yeah,
He
where it's
always wanted to play Paranoia.
yeah, and it's neat because it has basically four, I think it's three or four different like modes they call it. One
Hmm.
of which is like kind of a straight cyberpunk mode. One of them is like a kind of cyber noir. But then there's one mode that's called I think it's called Zap. Um, it's called Zap, and so it's just like a real zany kind of like fucking crazy sci-fi world where all sorts of random crap happens. It's
Hmm.
like, like a little bit of Fallout, but even crazier than that, where it's like your characters might be like, you know, stumbling across giant blasters that like just turn people to goo with like
Yeah.
one shot or
Or
something like that.
the refrig. I think I read one that was like the refrig combulator exploded, and now it's a frozen tundra, and the
Yeah.
players have to traverse over it to get back to habitable weather.
Yeah, it's kind of absurdist takes on stuff. So, I think finding the right game will probably allow you to kind of like lock into what what sort of succession arc is going to suit your sensibilities. But if you wanted to incorporate, there are some options too to incorporate it into the kind of like an interlude between one campaign and the
Mm.
next. If you want to keep it in the same world, it just depends on what your purposes would be. Like
I think
Matt
that's
said, the
better.
beach day thing.
Yeah, yeah. I just think it's better if you want to keep the momentum, or if you want to keep the players interested in your world and the story that you're creating, maybe stick to that world. That's just a
Yeah,
thought that I have. If you don't want to, really bring anything down, if you go to a completely different, not just a system, but a genre, and the players all of a sudden find out that, what, we kind of like, it could be, I kind of like Star Trek a little bit more than Dungeons and Dragons right now, and
yeah,
then they might kind of lose out of it. But of course, that's, everybody's different. But I just think keeping it in the world might be a little bit better if you don't want to go more than, if you only want to go 4 or 5 sessions.
yeah. I don't have a tendency to disagree with that. I mean, you can add context and you know light to things that like are not typically illuminated in the world, either because it's like some sort of backstory, it's some sort of loose end, or maybe playing some sort of character that is in the narrative of one campaign or even the next campaign. You could really use it, just like Matt said, this is kind of what these characters were doing. And you could even play with it and jump back in time, right? Like
Hmm.
before the last campaign or in the midst of the last campaign, this is what these NPCs were doing. Or you could use it as a preview, like this is a thing that happens between the campaigns, and what happens in this little 5 or 6 session arc will maybe even be the next quest hook for the next campaign that kicks off the next campaign, like a foreshadowing kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because yeah, it doesn't need to be if the goal if the goal of the little mini campaign, if that's what you want to call it, is to just provide a quest hook for the next major campaign, then the players will stay invested and they might not even know that, so it might be kind of like a cool little Easter egg. But if you do want to break and you think your players want to break, then yeah, switch systems and just do something like 180 degrees from what it is that you're running now, but that
Mm.
does run the risk of, as Matt said, maybe they might just decide, well, actually, maybe we don't want to do a second campaign with this, and we just
Yeah.
want to kind of keep on with Tea Time Adventures or whatever.
Yeah, as soon as
Um,
they go from, uh, you know, Xanathus, my 14th level warrior, to Adam, my antique dealer in Call of Cthulhu, and I kind of
yeah,
like Adam. Adam's kind of fun.
yeah, yeah, or just it's uh, like I'm trying to remember there was this game. It was a video game for NES, and it was I think South Park, the South Park RPG kind of riffed on it a little bit, but it was kind of like that. It was a really cool role-playing game, but you were like little kids in a neighborhood, and you had
Oh, I
like,
know what you're talking about.
yeah, you had like skateboards and like ball
Yeah.
caps, and like you
Hmm.
were doing kid shit, and these were your quests, and it was a really fun game. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it's like, it makes all sorts of lists for like one of the best
Hmm.
RPGs like ever. But that's what kind of made it cool, is it's like, you're just, you're trying to plot out your paper route or something, right? Like this is kind of fun. It's low stakes, and it's almost kind of it's really fun sometimes to be so invested in something that is that low stakes.
Yeah.
It gives you a break from the intensity in the same way that when you're crafting a bigger campaign, you need to have like low energy scenes to
Hmm.
allow people to kind of come down off that high. If you're just constantly trying to ramp everything up in that do kind of way,
Right.
then yeah, you're just going to be nothing's going to come close to that stimulation, and it's going to seem boring eventually, or it's just. But some people don't mind that, it might be a recalibration. Yeah, I'm not particularly like I'm enjoying Barbarians of Lemura, and I'm not even necessarily all that eager to get back to the D&D campaign as much as I would like Beto to be back in the game. Um, I'm, just kind of enjoying where this goes,
Hmm.
and it seems like I can just kind of craft quests and things that don't have to have super long plot arcs, and that's much less intensive for prep and GM work and everything
Hmm.
anyway. So
All right. I think that's going to bring us to the end of this one, unless you got anything to end on there, David.
I got nothing else.
All right. Well, then let's just go with a good night.
And good luck.